All right, perfect. Thank you so much for everyone who takes some time of your weekend, of your Sunday to make this happen. We're really happy to be here. Thank you so much to EqualOcean and all the speakers here in front of. Looking forward to ask some very interesting questions. I'm Andres from Startup Grind, the co-director. My first question actually just a very brief introduction of yourselves, what you do, what is your startup about, and then we start to make it, everything will be on context, what we'll be covering.
Okay, so I'm Sophie from Shannon.AI, and I'm covering sales BD for the company. We are a new startup. We started end of 2017, and so we're basically like a year and a half in the journey. Right now we have around 200 people, so we're expanding very fast. We reached around 200 million RMB last year. We now have our headquarters in Beijing, and we have an office in Shanghai. So what we basically do is we are focusing on NLP technology, and we focus on the finance industry. We're also expanding in other industries as well right now at this stage. What we do is we take unstructured data and to structure that. So basically we use end-to-end deep learning model to process all the data and to provide services and data to the financial institutions. Sorry, just a bit about myself. So I joined the company from the start in 2018 after I graduated from Stanford MBA degree. And before that, I worked 4 years in Africa. So I was developing Belt and Road projects there. It's also a sales function, but it's a totally different industry. And before that, I worked for FMCG. I was a sales manager in AB InBev. So that is my background.
This is Ethan from Transwarp Technology. Our company focuses on cloud computing, on AI platforms, big data, and so on. So actually, our company is one of the leading big data companies in the world, and we focus on many AI areas such as computer vision, NLP, traditional AI, traditional machine learning, and other stuff. So actually, we focus on many industries. But this is our company, and a little bit about myself. I graduated 4 years ago, and I worked in Bank of America for 1 year and 2, and then Alibaba, then here I'm in Transwarp. So yeah.
Okay. Hello everyone. I think it's it's not very easy for everyone to come here to this in this afternoon, because considering about the traffic control, because you never know there's a tank or jet fighter on the way. So let's treasure this opportunity. And I'm Lex from Terminus. We actually a young company. We established here till now less than 4 years, and we still think we are on the first stage of the whole AI technology, the industry. Basically, Terminus is a technology company, but we are not a technology company. Because from the first day we established, we think if we do not combine the technology with the traditional industry, it's kind of 耍流氓. So we care most about how we can combine the technology, the AI technology, the AI IoT with the traditional industry. So actually, this is what we are focusing on now. Okay.
Perfect, thank you so much. So as you guys have understand, so we have very rich different backgrounds from different industries, different applications. So it comes from here, it comes my first question. So given the vast, because we can mention that AI is a general technology, but it has multiple applications. Some of them are direct, some of them are indirect. But what I want to know is how in your journey, or well, the journey of the company that you represent, how you guys found that specific industry, that specific focus, and the verticals that involve, and what could be the possible overlaps that will happen with other technologies. How do you decide for that one? And how do you see in the near future there will be many, or currently, many overlaps with your current company? This is an open one, so whoever wants to take it.
I will share my experience, because I think an integration of the two strategy would be better. Because, for example, if you just saying that we focused on just one kind of model, then you lose another kind of customers. Because we serve the customers well, and the initial goals of our company is to serve to enable our customer to utilize AI power So actually, different customers have different business model. They have different requirements and different needs. So actually, we have to satisfy them. So basically speaking, we will integrate the two strategies together to enable them to fully utilize AI power.
Great. What about your case, Sophie? How has it been?
So I think many of the people today who's sitting here, like you want to start a startup or you already started a startup. So just looking back on how Shannon.AI choosing finance as an industry and how to think about how AI can do for this industry, I think it's actually looking at the market and looking at ourselves, like what's our unique capability and how big is the market. And I remember at first when we look at 2 years ago, when we say finance is a big market, like medicine industry, like education, they're all like big market size. And then we look at our core capability, we say in our team, we have people from hedge funds, we have people from PE background, we have people that worked in the industry for a while, and we know that industry. And I think this is a key lesson. Like when we start something, we want to know that business. We want our team to have people from that background, and it's very, very important to have that experience if you want to provide services or serve that kind of customer. And that's how we choose that. And I think right now, because we are serving enterprises and especially big financial institutions, one thing we see is that the clients, they have very sophisticated needs. And like NLP itself, it cannot be, it's a part of what they need, but what they actually need is a whole solution. So we also actively partner with other technology companies who also provide solutions, and that ecosystem is very crucial to make our client happy and give them a whole solution.
Great.
I am always from the different view, actually. Because when we're talking about AI, first we will think about is AI, what is AI? It's kind of computing things, it's different models, but let's come back to the business. Because AI is just like our brain. Sometimes AI is not the problem to stop we making the progress, but data is. Because we do not have enough data for most of the industries. So that's why Terminus from the 2017 we make up a new word we call AIoT, because we just think AI is just like our brain and IoT is like our feet and hands and to collect all the data. So that's why we put together a new word called AIoT. But now we always heard a lot of words like big data or smart city or smart home, everything. It's very easy for us to think about if we have data or if we have AI at home or at office, what kind of the function we can achieve. But we just ignored one important thing. Where all the data come from? How much we need to pay for all the data? How much cost we need to implement all the sensors? Whether we can afford this? So the most important thing is not only AI. We think about, we have actually Terminus, we have a whole AIoT loop. For example, the first thing is transformation. We call it like how we transform the traditional scenes industry into the digitalization. So this is a transformation. For most of the industry or scenes or industries, they haven't achieved the transformation yet. So this is the basic. Then it's online. We transform all the the data onto the line, whatever. It's very easy. Actually, for about 5G, we're talking a lot about 5G or 4G, everything. So online is not very difficult. The third thing is the intellectualization. So we will have the edge computing, we have the cloud, we have everything. So we analyze all the data, we get the conclusion. So this is the third step. Then the fourth step is the automation. Automation is the final target, or it's basically the target of what we are doing for the AI. Because automation, we can make the progress, we can improve the efficiency, everything. So AIoT, we can see the whole loop is based on the transformation. So that's why we focus more about whether we have the digitalization basics. If we put a mature line about all the industries, the internet industry will be on the top of the digitalization because basically it's very mature about the data. So basically we can just imagine for the internet industry, they have all the data they wanted. But for most of the industry, maybe for the financial industry, they have data, but they do not have all the data. But for other occasions or other things, digitalization or transformation is still the largest issue for them. But on the other hand of this thing, the transformation or digitalization is still a big chance for us. Because for Terminus, about our revenue, the sensors or the hardwares comes with the larger shares. Because first we need to persuade our clients that you are still in the transformation stage. You need to do the digitalization, then you need to think about what kind of sensor or device you need to improve, and we can do something for you. So basically that's why we work with all the traditional industries very tightly for example, the state grid or the campus or for the residence area.
Perfect. So going forward with my next question, will be more specific. We will go from the very beginning to touching the surface of what is the monetization to get deep into strategies, and then once we understand this, okay, now we understand how you're getting the start profitable. Now the next step of going global. So that will be the whole session. And going into the first, I would like to ask you, Ethan, that you're the numbers guy today. You're the one who knows deep into the financial side of things. And well, keep on your mind the keywords of going from big data to what is visualization. That is a whole journey that is either direct, offering this as a core technology and AI, or as Lex mentioned, transformation, transforming existing industries by integrating as part of an overall solution and improving what is already existing in the market. So if we go with the models of monetization, how to make it viable for now? Of course, talking about the case of Transwarp, on your case specifically about big data, and how other companies that are using it as a core technology or as a better solution to get into the market, how do they should use the strategy of getting into monetization?
So actually, I will share just a case. This is about one of our product, which is knowledge graph. So the application of knowledge graph in financial industry is I would say, very hard because you have multiple sources. So you have images, you have natural language, you have structured data. So actually, how to integrate them is a very big problem for the financial industry. So actually, if we integrate them in one standalone application or platform, we enable our customers to utilize this power. So actually, how to do that is just the answer is we find is knowledge graph. So in this case, so actually we use this technology to help our customers to, for example, they have structured data in compliance risk or corporate risk or operational risk. So how to integrate all these kind of sources together. So for storage side, they use a database which is called the graph database. It's very different from the key value database. So actually we just put an application on this one and we create a product. And secondly, they have to use some algorithms. So integrate with the models, algorithms, or whatever. So a lot of things together to create a new one. So we create a lot of models to do that. But remember that in AI, we don't want to be artificial idiots. We want to be artificial intelligence. So actually, how to use them together to create an environment which could provide their profit. So actually, what we do is to create some platform which we call the sovereign AI platform. So you can do machine learning, deep learning, whatever. So actually, you can do that in that platform. So actually, integrate with this too. And another thought is that we want to make sure that our customers use that. So actually, it's AI plus UI. which is the artificial intelligence plus the user interface. So actually, in this way, we could create such a product to. So actually, this product actually they satisfy our customers. So actually, they could buy it because they satisfy their requirements. They want to integrate the data. They want to use some strategies. They want to try some new algorithms and models in their platform. So actually, we build a whole system which they could use. They could use this kind of product to create a new. They could identify which one is the risky or not, a suspicious activity, custom profile, and do some piloting work, all in one platform. So actually, this is our thoughts.
All right, perfect. So from what I understand is like you guys passed through a lot of testing on the monetization process until you really find what the customer needs. So actually, the whole reason behind is actually equal to any single business. So then it goes to my following question, that is for you, Sophie, as your BD and salesperson. In this case, how do you see that, especially in the cases of the applications of AI that have been demonstrated that are already making profits, like chatbots, in your case, is natural language processing, and well, the different applications that it has, how do you see that they will currently continue from a profitable point of view, making more profits, and how you see that it will change or evolve in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years?
Okay, that is a very good question, and I think the larger picture, actually, if we think about why we need an LP, why we need chatbots, I think it's because we have entered an age from age of scarcity to age of abundance, right? We have so much information, we have so much things, and then it itself creates a problem of how to find the right information at the right time from all of those distracted things. So if we think about that, I think the key value that NLP technology provides is to lower the barrier to information for a whole bunch of people and customers. So take call center, for example, right? So you have a call center, and of course we want one-on-one customer service. But if 1,000 people are asking a question and there is only a single operator, then it will be very difficult for other customers to get a quick answer, right? So for NLP technology, I think what we try to do is really providing the data and provide the interface to reach a whole bunch of customers so that they can get the information much easier, very simple. They can simply ask and get the answer. And the data behind all those answers, like we will be able to handle that. We use information extraction, we use knowledge graph, like all these technologies, complicated technology, but it's in the back end. Like it has a very simple human interface, and it has the sophisticated technology back end. So back to monetization, how do we make money from that, right? And what because we choose enterprise business, like we're not to end customer. Because if you think about Siri, right, it's very hard for Siri to charge people for that kind of services. And even they don't charge anything, still there are a large portion of people who don't use that. But for finance industry, it's kind of different. When you look at the vertical, then they have like individual investors who don't know how to use Bloomberg, how to use WIM, and how to use those databases, and how to write code to pull MySQL data, right? So you want to lower the barrier. If you could do that, like you can open this whole information to a bunch of new customers who have no access to that. So that is an amazing thing, I think, what we're doing. And the second is even for the enterprises, like the professionals. Even for the professionals, you make it very easy for them to pull data. That is one side. And the other side is, right now we're also working on alternative data. Alternative data means you have data like from the app usage, from different places, those data, like even satellite images that you can collect, and you can provide to those professional investors who doesn't have this kind of access before, because it's scattered, it's everywhere, and it's very hard to collect. But these days, using technology, we're able to process all those kinds of unstructured data, and we could provide that with a better user interface, more customer friendly. So, and I think talking about monetization, I'm convinced that user experience itself, like making it very easy for people to use itself, you cannot sell that. But you could sell that combining with the data, the precious data you can provide, and you can also sell that combining with the hardware that people can easily use to make the information more accessible. So that's our take on that.
At the end, it just gets translated into customer satisfaction. The more data that it's analyzed, the more that you know how to target specifically customers, and it can be applied to any industry, which is great. So then, on my next question then, I want to ask you, Lex. So now, if we're talking about these companies that already know their ways of monetization, how do you see, what do you think are the applications in the industries that will take momentum? And specifically talking about your case, in the case of the smart cities and smart urban development, how do you see that these technologies will be embedded into societies in the future?
Okay, I'll raise 3 examples to I guess all of you are more exciting or interesting in this, from the simple to the complicated. First thing is, we still believe that if we can solve the real problems of the clients, and we'll get paid, usually can get paid, not always. And the first case in the residence area in Shanghai, or actually in Beijing, everywhere in the whole China, we have a lot of lonely old people who live alone, right? And maybe older than 70 years old. And usually we'll have the volunteers to visit them like once a month or maybe once 2 months. But usually when there's any accident, it will be too late. So to solve this problem, all the volunteers think a lot of ways. For example, they ask the old people to put some flowers in the balcony to see whether he's good or not. So it's very useful. But now, for us, it's very simple, because we have a monitoring system for the whole residence area. If the old people do not show up in 24 hours or 48 hours, we'll send an alert to the volunteers. So the volunteer will go direct to the home to see whether he's sick or anything wrong. So it's very simple, but based on the data, if we have the data, so we can solve the problem very easily. But if we do not have data, it will get so complicated. So this is case 1. Case 2, it's a little bit related to the financial industry for the bank. Risk control is always the key problem for the financial industry. So Shannon.AI is actually, I guess, is more focusing based on the AI and the NLP with the financial data, right? So if we expand the whole financial industry, the data side, for example, whether when we are measuring about the medium, the small company, the risk of them, if we know the visitors of every day of these companies, what will happen? If we can control, or we can know the storage, the going up or going down of all the medium small companies, what will happen? And if we can know the usage of all the electricity devices of all these companies, what can we conclude? So basically, we are expanding this area with some banks and the financial companies to set up some sensors to all these medium and small companies to monitoring whether for example, the visitors are going down, so less and less of the visitors and the less of the employees means maybe there's a big risk for these companies. So this is a typically case that for us, actually we are expanding this solution into the financial industry, which will be very important for the industry company about the risk controls. So I guess we will have a big cooperation with Shannon.AI maybe. So this is the case 2. And about case 3. Case 3 is about the fire control, so which every of us will care most, right? We heard a lot of fire alarms and fire cases around the world. And about smart firefighting, actually it's an old topic. For most of the smart firefighting, the traditional way is just put all the sensors, alarms online. So I don't think it's a real smart firefighting. It's only remote control. It's only about collect data. For us, the real firefighting, smart firefighting is to control the whole scenes. First, we need to, it's called like digital twin. We put the whole scenes into the digitalized, and we'll see when there's a fire alarm happened. We'll know whether this wall is breakable, or this door is breakable, or whether the nearest fire hole, where the nearest fire hole, everything. So this is it's like accident-based or case-based solution. It's not remote control. So we need to change our minds. It's not just like, for example, for the smart homes, it's just a remote control thing. No. We need to put the whole things together as a complete cases, as a complete solution. So when this accident happened, and we will know immediately the whole solution, even we can send the robot, the firefighting robot, into the on the right way. So all this function based on we can put the whole things into digitalization. So this is the case 3 we are doing. So actually this is step by step. The first case is very easy to achieve for about the old people carrying, but for the case 2, case 3, actually we are still doing, and we are still making the solution with our clients. So for the clients, they are still a little bit confused how they can achieve the whole AI things. They believe that AI can help them to improve the efficiency, everything. They still believe this, but how to achieve this goal? It's a long way for us to go, actually.
Very interesting. Dr. Well, when I listen to you right now, I really feel that the future is really coming in very soon. And it's great to see that, like the sample of the first question, what would be the potential overlaps? Let's say out of this salon, we will have Terminus and Shannon.AI working together very soon. On the next one, you mentioned is step by step, which is really important. And we're not talking about monetization, but once everything has been developed. But what about on the first step? And my question goes to you, Ethan. So if we go as a seasoned chief product officer, so from what is the step from research and development to product, how to jump from this step to this one, thinking about the monetization strategies? Of course, in the case of your company, Transwarp Technologies.
Okay, I'll still use, I just talked about the KG, the knowledge graph case, so actually I will use that again. For research and development purpose, it's very simple, because if you develop a prototype, it's very simple. So actually, just if the customer want NLP, just do some NER, which is recognize the entities or the relationship or whatever events. So, but actually, people will do. In real world, it's much more complicated, because for algorithms and the models, it only take about 30% of the solution part. So actually, what we do is to, first of all, we will just research the market. We want to make sure that there is what we can do in this market and in this particular field. And for KG, in KG case, we actually choose the financial market, and we talk about our risk managers and as a piloting person, we just talk about the compliance risk for the initial step. So actually what they want is they want a piloting tool. So they just want a UI. So actually we developed a UI tool, which is very nice. You can you can use it to integrate multiple sources. And this is the initial step. After that, we have to talk to our customers and make sure what they really want. So what they really want is not just a piloting tool. They want to integrate their isolated database together. So actually, for this part, we have to make sure our tool, our platform, have this capacity. And another side is that sometimes for the risk control, you have to make sure it's real time. For example, if there is a news, the bad news, for example, explosion or whatever, so you have to make sure this kind of news can be extracted by our NLP engine very fast. So it's a real time. So actually, we have to make sure this part goes well. And actually, we have to make sure this data flow from the very beginning end to present in our platform is very fast. So actually, we must make sure this R&D is working. And actually, we have to make sure this product is working. And third, we have to test it again and again, because once we know what our customer needs, we have to, for example, we have to do Scrum every day. We have to make sure we have to talk to the customers, risk managers, and their leaders again and again to make sure this is what they really want. So actually, R&D is very simple. I would say it's kind of simple because it only takes up 30% of the work, but actually the remaining 70% is actually you really want to pay attention to, because otherwise it's not AI. I would say it again. It's not AI. It's artificial intelligence. Because to enable our customer to use that, you don't want to just create a fancy looking, but just a junk. We actually want our platform to be fully utilized. So this is our experience.
Absolutely. So then, as I understand, like the way of when you go to the last step, we really try to make profits, but when we go back to the first step, is just keep costs reasonable. That makes sense. It can be fully utilized, the whole product.
Yes.
Excellent. And then, Stefan, Alex and Yufeng has explained us very well the monetization strategies for Terminus and Transwarp. What about in the case of Shannon.AI? If you can give us more of what you already talked, the monetization strategies that you actually use on a day-by-day basis.
So I will talk a little bit about like how do we price our product and how do we sell our product, right?
Yeah.
Because we have this algorithm, right, and we need to think about like what customer needs. And I think one important rule we need to remember is that when you sell things, there's this death valley. So you want to either sell very valuable customer that like each deal is around at least millions. Otherwise, you sell very low price to mass market. So you don't want to stay in the middle, especially for big enterprises. You don't want to sell them something like, say, 10K. And because for enterprises, what you see is there are multiple decision makers involved. Like to sell everything, it's basically like 6 to 8 people, and some will be the blockers, some they will have different perspective about their product. So basically, if you want to sell to like Fortune 500 companies, big enterprises, you want to sell them a sophisticated system that can help them to do many things. And so what we sell to those big enterprises is it's a platform that they can do deep learning, labeling and training by themselves. So basically what it means is that there are not enough AI talents for this big corporation, but they have lots of IT people. And then one problem we solve for them is how to make them be able to use these AI tools and to achieve the similar results. So that is a platform that we provide to these big enterprises. And then for some smaller customers, what we do is that we have no customization. It's an API service. The data we provide, and then it's an API service that they can integrate into their apps. They can integrate into their back office systems that they can do. So basically, what we want to do is serve these two markets, but very different products. Big enterprises, you have customization, you have tailor-made automation and everything. And for the smaller enterprises, even individual users, you provide just for mass market products. And so the pricing will be different. And the most important thing is you don't stay in the middle.
What are the challenges that you have faced connecting these dots, knowing like what will work for the Fortune 100s and what will work for the ones that, I don't know, like more medium-sized or different types of clients? How do you connect to make sure that the monetization strategies have been the right for every single client that you have?
Yeah, so I think for big enterprises, there are several key issues you want to know at first. It's not like talking as many people as possible. For us, it's like first you need to understand, do they have a budget? What is this priority? Who made the decision? And how can you navigate that? And how you want to understand their industry, and you want to understand what is happening in the strategy of this company. And at the same time, because we're selling something very new, it's not like selling shoes or selling computers. So sometimes you need to kind of coach the clients and people, like even CIOs, like they want to understand more about this technology, and that's kind of some of the value that we could provide, because like we have people doing the research, we have people doing this. So all of these are key important things that we need to focus on for big enterprises. And for individual customers, I think it's like doing market research, talking to these people and to find out, like for each industry, say right now we have a grammar checking tool. So for investment banking, what we provide is we check we work with the quality control department. It's like when they write the reports, they don't want there to be any mistakes and punctuations, Chinese, English, different things. So it's part of the feature that we provide to big enterprises. But then we say this kind of thing is like a Grammarly, right? So it could be used by individual users. So we also need to, it's like we also have a team that is doing the market research and talking to people and say if we could spin out that product and serve a different market, maybe for education or maybe for other industries. So that is something we're doing. And for pricing strategy, like what we could do is we could compare, we could benchmark, right? We could benchmark like how much the competitive products are providing, what's their functionality, and what we could provide, and we could benchmark our price based on that. And if it's a totally new product, which it is not actually, because I think today everything we are doing, at least some people else is also doing that. So you could always like test the water and say what's the right price to charge that.
Well, it's best benchmarking, adapting, delivering.
Yeah.
Great. What about in your case? I'm very curious, Lex, because your plan is more of the city level, maybe government level.
Yes.
What are the main requests that you get from them? What are usually the main concerns that they have, the main questions they have, and of course, how you successfully deliver on what they want?
Yeah, I would like to use 3 steps to describe this. And the first step, you should let the decision maker about the city level, or maybe the large enterprises decision maker, to trust your theory. So we have we call dark forest theory, which is not like the science fiction dark forest theory. So what is our digitalization dark forest theory? For example, the traditional way of city or enterprise level to build the whole system, to the software system, is just like we are running through a dark forest from point A to point B, and then we'll meet all the trees and the leaves along the way. Then we collect all the data about the trees and leaves, so we know from point A to point B, and we have the path. But what is inside the whole dark forest? What is like beside our way? We do not know. The system never know. So once when the workflow changed, so we need to rebuild the whole system. So this is basically every system, the traditional way to build the system. But now we have a different occasion or different theory about the building the whole system. If we met a whole dark forest, like a whole smart city, we first need to divide them into different scenes. Maybe there's a lake, or there's a hill, or there's a sand, or whatever. But we put the lake as a dark model. But we know there's a lake, right? So we need to build the whole forest from the top view of the whole forest. But we need to divide them side by side, quarter by quarter. So we'll find one point For example, we know the lake is too large. Maybe it costs us too much to digitalize it. So maybe we just digitalize a little bit of a small part of this, and we just use to build the models that we need to have. But still, we know the whole picture of the forest. So this is basically what we are calling about the dark forest theory, about the digitalization. So this is actually the most enterprise they met. They know that they can build the whole forest, but it takes like 10 or 5 years or 10 years. So first step, maybe we just build one point. For example, for the whole smart city. Why we never see a real smart city in the world? It's too complicated. It's like hundreds of the systems. It's impossible for any company or any government to build a real smart city now, right? So that's why we divide the smart city, the whole city, into hundreds of parts. And then we make one small part smart. For example, the campus, maybe the residence area, maybe 1 building or 2 buildings, maybe 100 buildings. It's workable. For us, we can do it. So it's our way to build the whole complicated systems. So we divide them and we put them together. So this is the first step, to let them realize how we can carry down the whole complicated smart city or smart company, everything down to us is our step. So this is step 1. Step 2 is about how we can make money, right? We use a freestyle, or we use a free model. We invest our sensors or hardware first and get back for the long time. No, it's usually not workable. The history has proven it. There's last few years, there's money burning for the internet, right? A lot of internet companies. Money burning is not real to making money. So for us, it's the business model is very simple. We provide the solution and we get money back. It's very simple. We usually do not consider about whether we can invest first and then you pay other way, or we can get from like 3 or 5 years to get money back. Is usually very risky, especially for our startup companies. So this is the case too, the step 2. And also about step 2, there's a problem we need to consider about. What kind of company they care about how much they can pay, how much money they can earn from our solution. For example, for the smart retail, there's a very popular topic about smart retail, right? So it's very easy for one retail store to be fully digitalized, and you can see all the advanced technology, AI or hardware, software, whatever inside one store. It's okay, but it's too costly. It will be very expensive for one whole solution. It's okay for the marketing purpose to build a smart store or smart retail, but it's impossible for it to expand to 1,000 stores. So this is a problem usually a lot of the commercial companies, they need to think about. That's why when we are talking about smart retail, we only see the models, we only see the examples, but we cannot see it everywhere. After all, we see some of the small retail companies, they use very cheap and very cost-effective technologies in their stores. For example, for some cameras, AI cameras, use very simple systems or platforms to achieve their goals. It's very workable. Maybe it costs only 10,000 RMB in one store, but enough. So this is but it's a bad news for our AI companies. We want them to spend 1 million in one store, but it's impossible. So this is step 2. Then step 3 is every company only considering about the economy problem or the technical problem. No, there are still a lot of companies about the decision makers. They are not only caring about the economy problem, they're caring about political problems. For example, when there's a fire station get fire, right? There's a big loss about the station. So basically for the responsible people, the physical loss of the station is the small part. The biggest loss is what? Is his future career. So usually when we are discussion with the problem or the solution, smart solution with our clients, we'll let them know if you do not use the solution, maybe not Terminus, maybe the others, but if you do not use it, when this something happen, you will lose much more. So you better choose one. Choose who, Terminus or whoever, it's okay. But you must choose one. So this is our step 3.
Great, I love the analogy of the dark forest. To identify what's the customer, what we got with the big picture, what's the market, and also like understand. I really like the approach of you three, very down to earth, to go very as a startup, profit driven rather than only investment driven. So like you mentioned, because burning cash, many startups have passed through this. They are in figure out the market and they're already out of it. Let's say. So there we go. My next question is to each of you. Because just talk about yourself, about your personality. You know that you guys have rich background in non-tech industries. So what I want to know is in your case with the Undev, your case with Bank of America, and your case with Accenture, how on market, working for companies where the markets, let's say the waters have already been tested, also you're implementing, you're transforming it, how that knowledge about traditional industry has helped you to be able to now in a tech company selling AI solutions?
So I want to talk about like what's changed across different industry and what's the same, right? So I worked in AB InBev selling beverages, and then I work with government like selling Belt and Road projects, and basically that's like huge projects, huge deals, and then come back to AI. You sell like softwares and solutions. So I think the equally important thing across all these industries is like you provide values and to build trust, right? So in beverage industry, what we do is like maybe it's the rebate policies, it's the marketing materials to help the wholesalers, and how you can work well with that, how you can incentivize those people to sell more beers. And then for the government, it's like you need to know what as a country what they want to do and what's the country's priorities. And then they maybe for politicians, you interact with lots of politicians, right? And maybe what they kind of want to know is like you need to be able to talk about the global news, and they want to know your opinions, what's happening in China, and so lots of these kind of intellectual interactions. And then for the AI industry, I think you build trust. You also need to build trust for them to understand that your company is capable to provide a solution to solve the problem they're facing. And by having these technical discussions, you have the right people to approach them, you respond fast enough, and you give them the demos, and step by step you follow up. So the process would be different, and how you achieve that is different, but I think the need to build trust and to build rapport with the decision makers is kind of the same across the industry.
My experience is that I major in statistics actually, so I learned statistics for 11 years, which is a very long time. And this area is very close to currently machine learning, or what I would say AI. And actually, I was in the financial industry because I was in Bank of America for compliance risk for several years. So actually, I say there is a data isolation problem in the financial industry because they have different systems. So Wells Fargo, Bank of America, whatever. So they have different systems. So their data never exchange. So you will never know what happened to your customer in Wells Fargo if your customer is here, now is in Bank of America. So the problem is very huge. So actually, what I learned from that is that if we want to utilize the power of AI, so actually first of all we have to build construct a data lake, so which integrates the isolated data pond into one ocean. So that's the reason why I enter Transwarp. So because it's one of the leading big data company. So then what happens next to that? I find that only isolation of the data is not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is that you have different sources of data. So you have NLP, you have CV, because say structured data, unstructured data is much more complicated than the previous one. So for me, so I changed my career path from the traditional financial industry to this AI leading industry. So actually, what I'm thinking is that this AI technology will empower us because it creates new sources, it creates a new challenge. And this kind of challenge that brings you you can find some market in that. You can find business, you can define new ways to identify your person is risky, or you can do recommendation based on your new technology. And this is what I'm thinking about, because I'm a tech person.
Oh, great.
Okay, for myself, it's more like a sorrow story, because I always cross the border from my college. First, I joined in Beijing to study to join the Beijing Foreign Study Language School. It's basically most people think it's only a language learning college, but I entered there to learn finance. So always people are asking, "Where are you from?" I'm from blah, blah, blah. What do you learn? Finance. What? Do you have finance in your school? Okay, I explain a lot about this. So then I graduated from the school to join Accenture, and I do not work around the finance. Then I start to work around the IT strategy, and after a while, I do not do the IT strategy. I start to do the how to build a system, to build the IT system, not strategy. And then I met a project considering about the China Patrol, that to build China's first, also world's first, based on the IoT technology, a PaaS platform to solve their problems. So it's kind of cross-border. And then I myself have a startup company before, like 10 years ago. It's more like O2O company, but then there's no O2O concept, right? There's no smartphone yet. There's only the traditional phone. But I think that it's still a big market for one residence area. If I can collect all the needs and the necessaries of all the residence people, and I can put all the stores for the food and the beverage, whatever, together to build a platform in the residence areas, there's still big market. So I started a company about the O2O, but still there's no O2O. So then you can imagine it failed. It's too aggressive. And money burning, no. There's still no money burning yet. And then, like 4 years ago, I met the CEO of Terminus, and we are talking about the future of the IoT, about the technology, about the business of maybe the auto. Auto is very popular then. We are discussing a lot about that. We have the same thoughts and we have the same dreams. So I joined Terminus as the first team member also. So that's why I joined the Terminus, and we start the whole company. And still we make a lot of changes, because there's no pathway before we know that we can copy, right? Because there's no market or no companies like us. We are kind of exploring our way. So we made a lot of changes along the whole path. But still we are very lucky, because every changing point, we made the right decision. That's why we are coming here. So about the experience about why we need the traditional experience, because after all, our technology is served for the traditional industry. There's a lot of the traditional industry. For example, in China, the GDP is 1 million, whatever. It's a very huge point. Yeah, it's a huge number. But if we can improve the 10% of the efficiency, just imagine how big the market is. So why we're focusing on, we first need to understand the traditional industry, then we can solve the problem for them, and then we can make money. That's simple. So that's why we do not think that AIoT or AI is not a single or isolated company or isolated industry. We must combine us with the traditional industry. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So for sake of time, I'll just wrap up with the last two questions that we'll wrap in one, because this is important. I like how well coordinated were the questions I prepared with your answers. So because you mentioned, I know we know your background, so we have I'll say a strategist VP, our big data guru, and you're a visionary as a business development manager. I want to know, how do you see the future of your industry thanks to AI? And if we go to the very macro level, how do you see China as the next superpower? Talking about globally, and what are the main challenges on the cross-border relationship? China, not only with the US, but with the rest of the world, selling the new technology, in this case AI.
So I think like today's startup is kind of different than before in that our employees have more international backgrounds. So we actually starting from day one, like we've talked with many foreign financial institutions. We talk with like S&Ps, and in Japan MSIG, and in France the investment banks. So we talk with lots of these people because our team, like they are coming back from US or from Europe or from different places. So it's kind of very exciting thing that we have the team that be able to communicate with people from different countries, and I think that is definitely a good thing. But there are also some barriers. I think it's more like the physical location. Like if you want to work with big enterprises, right, you need a human touch, and maybe you need a contact person there in Europe that you could interact with these people on daily basis. We're considering that, but we're not at that yet. And to think about like in 5 to 10 years, what AI will bring for our industry. And I think I'm very optimistic. I'm convinced that like what we could do is that customers will get their service, get what they want much easier, much faster at a lower price. And this is what we can do. And we don't want them to get a trade-off. It's not like I pay a lower price and I get a worse service, right? So what we want to do is we have this AI technology to enable lots of automatic services for them, no matter they're using mobile phones, no matter they go to the stores or they interact with people, there are always ways that can satisfy their needs in some way. And still there will be like human touch. So to save their employees, to focus more on how to build relationships and interact with these customers on the back end, like to increase efficiency for those automatic services.
So for me, there's two keywords. The first one is inspiration, and the second one is innovation. And because I was doing that kind of genetic chips before. Because I'm majoring in statistics, so I connected with biology people. So actually, they have a problem to do the experiments because they have to try many times and spend a lot of money. But because I'm majoring in statistics, so I invented some algorithm for them. So it's still used now, and now to predict that people have a problem, genetic problem to produce the next generation. So actually, it's. Now currently it's still working, and and our lab still has 60% of the genetic area, so it's a very huge amount of that. And because I think about the computer vision problem, 10 years ago there is no deep learning, so actually people do traditional image processing, so they use a lot of powerful machine and powerful algorithms to do that, but the precision, guess what? It's only 60%. But after 2012, actually people invent deep learning. So actually, currently you can use such algorithm models in, say, Raspberry Pi, very cheap machine. Actually, you can get the precision as high as 99%. So actually, innovation and inspiration is what I'm talking about. So actually, for China, I think that if we keep these two in our AI industries, so these two things, and we are open, we would get the business market bigger and bigger, then it will be healthier. Yeah.
Actually, to me, the future of the AI or IoT is never a question or a problem, because everything we see now, including the light, the device, everything, the whole building, everything, they need to be upgraded to be replaced by the new sensors or new device or new IoT things. So the future is very bright, as never a problem. But sometimes we are caring about whether the technology about the control or trade war or whatever. I think it'll be be affected a little bit by this. Why? Because 90% of the technology be applied to the real cases is usually not the most advanced technology. It's usually the cost-effective technology, which is very popular and very common now. So the technology itself is usually not a problem. The problem is when and who. When it will happen, how much it takes, and who can do this. So to me, the problem is still when and who. So I think Terminus will join this competition and to be part of it. And we want to believe we want to become the who. And when we need to think about the past, and that we need to choose the right industry, because although every industry can be upgraded, but we need to choose the right way. Maybe some of the industry will be a little bit late, but some of the industry can be transformed very quickly. So this is what we are thinking about, actually. And actually, I need to apologize because I have to rush to the airport, because in case that I will meet a tank on my way, so I need to rush to the airport now. It's a very pity that we do not have chance to talk more about this topic. I think this topic is very interesting.
Absolutely.
Hope we can chat later. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, before we start with the Q&A, I will ask to all the audience to give a big applause to our speakers today that have given us the time to speak with them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Liz. All right, so yeah, I think we can start with a Q&A session right now. So,
But actually, my question was for him because he mentioned the State Grid, which is an energy company, and actually, I'm interested in knowing the application of IoT and also the AI in the energy sector. And because, like you mentioned, the State Grid, it's like a Chinese company that is planning to apply a new concept, a disruptive concept that is called IoE, which is the Internet of Energy, that is part of IoT. So my question was like, are you guys involved with energy companies, or maybe thinking to get involved in the future with them to somehow help them with the digital transformation and the use of AI?
I'll throw you for legs. Any of you guys feel?
We have some user cases in the energy industry. So actually what we do is because we use computer vision technology, which can help the energy company to identify which equipment is leaking or whatever is misfunction. And actually we can also do some face recognition to help the energy company to keep their factory to be safe. Yeah, so actually, so our solution is to integrate the edge computing and the central computing together to build a solution to help the companies to be more safe and robust and be efficient. Yeah.
I don't have any experiences, but I have a friend who is doing a startup, like they work with Shell and some energy companies, and what they do is, I think it's more like sensors and help them to save energy, so I'd be happy to connect you to afterwards.
Awesome. So there will be more coming on the networking session then. Any other question from the audience?
Yeah, so my question is, like, you mentioned that you partly like in your business using like computer vision, and basically you mentioned like also edge computing. So can you like specifically maybe give example like what kind of challenges you're facing like with the computer vision problems you solve? And because edge computing is quite new, like there's like currently actually China is doing the very impressive results in these chips that you can use like edge. So how you utilize it in your companies?
So the biggest problem is that we have to balance the efficiency and the power is used. Because for edge computing, you have to use very cheap. So actually, for example, you can use Raspberry Pi, you can use T-2, whatever. So actually, it's a very, the power consuming should be considered first. And then you have to consider what's the precision. And for the solution part, actually, for computer vision, you can use face recognition. You can detect what's the risky behavior. But it's very difficult because the risk behavior, the behavior of a person, it's very difficult to be defined. So actually have to find a way to define that. It's case by case. So I think these are the two biggest problem.
Question to Sophie. Yeah. So do you use like computer vision like this NLP like in both, or you just use like classic NLP?
Yeah. We use CV. Actually, what we do is like, because we handle lots of paperworks, and lots of paperworks, like it's scanned document, right? And so you have to do OCR and all those stuff, but it's not, it could be difficult for, if it's not clear and it has some of the seals on it and something. So what we do is like, we use NLP because we can understand the context and to recognize what should be the right word on it. So what we do is we combine CV and NLP to achieve a better result. So the correctiveness is higher.
So you use like some kind of like Microsoft API, because I know like Microsoft have open like API.
We don't use Microsoft API. So all of things we do is by ourselves, and we did that because of, not because we want to reinvent the wheel, but because for many of the financial institutions, they have lots of like tables. They have a specific traits that is not handled well by those open APIs and other things. So we have to do our own thing, and because we target this specific vertical.
The area of commercial database is also known as the area of IBM, Oracle, EMC, with the IOE becoming a movement in this phase. My question is called the domestic database met the conditions of the IOE, and for Transwarp database technology, whether there is any influence.
I think that's a big problem, and it's a big question. It's an open problem. I would say that if there's, sometimes I talk to my friends. He is in the structured company, so actually they just design some maps, but they use MySQL. It's enough. They don't use Oracle. They don't use Transwarp, TTH. They don't use CDH, whatever. But that depends on your customer. If your customer wants to use just a small data, they just manage it well, then that's fine. But if they want to manipulating data, they want to do data cleaning on very, very huge size. I mean, 1 TB or 1 PB or 10 PB, and temporal, spatial, whatever. So there are many fancy things there. And if they want to try this, and their business model really need that, they need to try our Transwarp.
A question on the ROI, because some of you talk about how you get the ROI. You want to go after the $1 million deals rather than going the small deals, but with a lot more customers, right? So what's your logic in selecting the right scenario to give you the ROI you need as a startup? That's question one. Even if you do have it, how do you avoid the competition we see now? I call it race to the bottom, or the Me Too strategy, which some other companies will come in with the name of the A or the T, saying, I will do the same, but half the price, and I will put 20 people sitting at your company to do it. Because ultimately, the title for today's discussion is monetization, right? So how would you do that? Because that's something I see in today's AI market is everybody claims to do the same, and everybody claims race to the bottom, I can be much cheaper. So how do you distinguish yourself, and how do you identify the killer scenario you believe that customers will pay that $1 million or 10 million plus?
Yeah, I think that is a very good question, and I think that is a reality, especially for banks. Like banks, traditionally they have the IT contractor, and they want them to sit on site and for all the time, 24 hours, and they want 500 people there. And so that's just the legacy model, how they work. And when we come there and they say the same thing to us, and we will, I think the first thing is you need to manage the expectations, right? So if there's a bank who's saying that, okay, Shannon.AI, you come, you need 50 people, you need to sit here and do all the things at our site, we will simply say, no, this is not possible. And what we could do is we could do all the algorithms, do everything on our side, in our headquarters, but we could do the implementation there on your side. Can you agree on this? Can we agree on this? If we can, then we go in there. And the second thing you mentioned is that there's the competition, right? Everybody claims to be the same, and this is also a very embarrassing problem, right? Because we go to any of the competition, and no matter whether they could do the same thing, they will claim that we could do this. And especially when you're going through the tendering process, right? And they will give a very low price for that. And for us, we try to be very rational about this. We have experienced that in one cases, we submit our tender, and then there's another company who's coming and said, we will do this like for an extremely low price. And for this kind of scenario, we just forget about it and let's see what will happen, right? After 3 months, I'm pretty sure that it will not continue, and then you could keep following that client, you know, because I think in the end, people will see which company you have the competency to do this same thing. It's not about the claim. So we don't use that low price strategy to try to achieve customer. Like I said, we only get in touch with those clients we know, like this is their priority. They want to do AI projects, they want to build NLP platforms, and they want to spend money on this. Otherwise, if they are looking for a low price bidder, that means they are not our target customer. So we would just forget about that. I don't know if that answers your question or.
Yeah, but sorry, the reason I asked that because AI, you need, like, I think Lex or somebody mentioned me a lot of data, right? How do you collect the data, right? Even if you do computer vision, do you focus on the forms in banks, or do you focus on the airway bills from logistics? They're all different kind of data you need, right? So how would you identify the best scenario to go after?
Yeah, I think that question is like, what you want to go after is if you process this kind of data once, and there are so many users could use that. So you want to process those data that all the investors will be interested in, right? So for the stock markets, like all the investors are interested in what happens to this company. So that is something you want to process for these public listed companies. That these companies in China, in Hong Kong, in different places, you want to do alternative data around these companies. So you don't want to process data that is specific to this single customer, and it's very, very tedious, and it's not usable across 10 different users. One product we have is a contract comparison system. So what the problem it solves is that for banks, they have lots of contracts they sign each day, right? And they want to check that, they want to make sure that after they receive a contract, the scanning document from a client, nothing has been changed. Right, so this is a risk control problem, and this kind of system is like usable for all kinds of banks, and you need to tailor-make some of the features, but it's not that much. So what we do is we identify a scenario that happens to all kinds of our target customers, and we see how tailor-made is that. And if that is like 10% or 20%, and the user is able to pay, then we don't see a problem. That's something that we want to go after.
其实我们谈到 AI， 很多时候，就是对于香农和那个清华而言，其实都是给做企业服务嘛。那么中美两个市场对比，我们经常讲中国市场企业服务很难开展呀，有什么各种各样的巴拉巴各种国情啊，各种困难。那有哪些其实在中美之间，其实有哪些是阶段发展差异造成的？就是中国也会像美国一样，有哪些是本质上的这种不同呢？
So for the development part, so actually in US and China we have different, because China still is a developing country. So actually it's very different from the US. So the US market is much more, I would say, mature, and the customer knows well what they really want. And they can just write a testing plan very well. But for China, the case is not. So actually, I think this is the most challenging part for our AI companies to identify which one we should really follow. And understand the needs of the customer is very important in China. And for the US, because my friends in SAP, they just implement something. They don't care what's the need behind this. So actually, I think this is the biggest difference.
I could add a point. I think if we look at past 30 years, right? Like in US, when did all these like software companies started? Like it's back 20 years something. That's because the economy slowed down, and so they need to focus on how you could make your operation more efficient, how you could manage that, right? But the past 30 years in China is like everything is growing so fast. It's like even if you don't have a very good operational system, if you have lots of waste in your management, there's no problem because you have the growth to cover all of these problems. But now I think the time is kind of different. The economy is slowing down a little bit, and so that we need to focusing on how can we make as each company, I think all the CEOs are thinking about how I can be more competitive. I need to be efficient in saving the money, and how can we streamline this process, the pipelines, everything, so that we will focus on the inside infrastructure, IT structure of the company. So I think that is a big difference between US and China that I could see.
Somebody else? Do we still have time for another question?
Maybe ask one.
All right.
I want to ask about a financial sector application because both of your companies, you conduct some application and services to financial areas. So when we're talking about financial area, we say that AI enhanced this industry because AI helps us to dealing with the large amount of data that before the human beings cannot deal with, and also build up the knowledge map or knowledge graph from the bottom data to the knowledge level. So, but actually in the end, what the financial sector clients want is they really find something out of their expectation using the big data or using the artificial intelligence. So can you give us any case or some examples in your real work that happened before, like some solid output that beyond the expectation of the clients?
I could give one example. So one thing we help the clients do is like, the clients, they will manage a portfolio, right? And then there are some of the announcements, like maybe from the different departments and maybe from the stock exchange market, they will, the announcement, it will mention that some company has some kind of things, and this kind of things reveals the risks, or it either would be risks or it will be good news, right? And if you use human to check those kind of news, it will not be on time because you cannot anticipate when they will have those kind of announcement. So one system we help a leading bank building is that they have this portfolio pool. What it means is that when there are some announcements from these different internet sources, we will automatically recognize what company it mentioned, what kind of risk it mentioned, and there's a set of rules that will be applied, and it will automatically remove or add some companies into that portfolio pool. So that is something very useful, very simple, and something that human beings very difficult to do.
So I will also give an example. This example exists in the AML, anti-money laundering. So we do a lot of anti-money laundering applications. So the basic problem in anti-money laundering or AML is that you have to decide which the money chain, how the money flows, and the original of this the money flow. So actually, if we use manpower, you have to check it case by case. You have to trace every transaction. It's a huge number. So actually, what we do is to integrate all the data from a different channel, different types of money, from check, from ATM, from whatever. So you have to integrate all the data sources together into your database, even in the database or graph database, never mind. And after that, you have to recover this chain. So this chain, you have to define some patterns, which is the traditional graph computing theory. But actually, sometimes you don't have a chance to observe this chain because this is the inner bound. So for bank A and bank B, you know what happens in your bank A, but you never know what happens in bank B because you don't have the transactions. So what you do is you can use some deep learning assisted graph computing technique. So you can use this kind of thing. So this kind of technique, we provide such tools to help our customers to identify the risk. So the potential risk would be measured in a probability way, and not definitely happen, but we can identify it's high risk or not high risk, low risk. So actually, from this point of view, from a data view, you can integrate them, and manpower can never do it. And from another side, from a statistical view, you can define the probability that it has a risk here, and we can define what kind of risk is here. So in this way, we can use both the power of graph computing and deep graph to help our customer to identify the risk in their system.
All right, so if you have any more questions, we have right now following networking session. Thanks again for speakers today. Very insightful session. I'm sure if you have any more questions, we're more than happy to attend them. And a big thank you to EqualOcean and to each of you who make part of your time today.